further ado, I'd say let's get this day started right away with Seamus Donoghue from Metaco and his keynote on getting the basics of crypto custody right and the key to unlock future DeFi opportunities. Enjoy.
Good morning. It's great to see full packed house first thing in the morning. So I know it's first thing in the morning. The drinks were great last night, but off to a good start. So Seamus Donoghue, I'm from Metaco. I'm the VP of Strategic Alliances at Metaco. And as it was introduced, we're going to talk about getting custody right. And as a company, maybe describe shortly, we basically provide the technology foundation to tier 1 institutions for them to securely integrate, build, and scale a digital operation. So there's been a lot of talk yesterday, for those that were here yesterday, about institutions coming to the market, and we've been talking that for years, but I think it's a reality now. I think on a weekly, daily basis almost, you're hearing new announcements about new firms coming. And what that's doing is basically it's delivering the service to more, let's say, more institutions, more consumers. They're embracing this. It's providing more foundation. I think we're really entering now, I don't think, I can see it, basically as a sustainable sort of virtuous circle. There was one presentation yesterday, I think it was DeFi, presented basically the Gartner hype cycle. We often present the same sort of framework, saying that you go through technologies, go through a whole sort of hype, spike up, a trough of disillusionment where they crash, and they come out on a slope of enlightenment. And we're very much on that sustainable slope of enlightenment now, where new firms are really reinforcing this. And at a C level, at a corporate level, it's not a question of if you have a digital strategy. If you don't have a crypto strategy, you're going to miss out. It's basically those firms, it's basically now it's essential. It's not a risk not to have one. It's not a risk to have one, it's a risk not to have one, rather. So when those firms decide what to do, this is where it seems to be a complex space to get in. Because clearly, we're talking about some security, as was introduced. This is one of the themes. But we're also talking about a space that is moving at an exponential space. Everything is iterating at a pace we've never really seen in financial markets. If you follow DeFi, even for those that are inside, it's very hard to keep up with what's happening. So as you get into this space, you need to think about where eventually you'll go and how you balance basically the fact that you're a regulated institution or it's increasingly a regulated asset that requires security, because if it's not just about keeping keys safe, as everyone knows, you can compromise the use of those keys. It's equally a risk that those assets are gone. But you need to be able to deliver the solutions to your clients in an agile, flexible way. They want you to have the latest thing, and you need the ability to deliver it. It's not 1 year, 2 years later, you've missed the boat entirely. So effectively, there's a trade-off here. There's a perceived trade-off about, can I get to market faster with something agile, and I'll sacrifice security, or vice versa. So what we've seen, observed in the market is some of the early movers have exactly done that. And the boxes here, the axis here is really, vertical axis is about agility and flexibility, horizontal axis about security. So the more further you are to the left, the more you've given up on security, and the higher you are up is more agile. And what we've seen is the boxes represent really the size of the firms. Some of the early firms are really about getting to market fast, having an agile solution, a great UI, just off to the races. But they've really sacrificed security. Others that kind of sacrifice security and agility. And the outcome here is they can't respond or they get hacked. You've got significant security risks as the business grows. We've seen some new firms moving in this space, new solutions, great security. They've got a great first use case, but are they ready to respond to the market? The agility is often not something that's really thought about. They think about the MVP or the first business use case. They haven't really thought about success. And what we talk about that success is, it's a competitive advantage to balance these two components, this agility, this flexibility, with security and compliance. There's no question security, as more assets move into this space, more of a requirement. You're going to be regulated. The asset's going to be regulated. We see this on a daily, weekly basis, good or bad. Some of these regulations hopefully are not here for good, but the space will be regulated. It is mainstream. So you need to be compliant, and you'll need to balance that with being agile and flexible to be able to respond to the pace of change. So the competitive advantage where you need to get to is this upper quadrant. And it's not a trade-off that you can be on one of the other quadrants to succeed. That is where you need to go. When people think about how to get there, it seems to be binary choices. You're presented, and I've put these on axes here to kind of represent kind of some of the initial decisions people talk about. What type of custody? Is it MPC hardware? This is not exactly where they're positioned, but these are perceptions. And I think perceptions really stop people thinking about what the right solution longer term is. There's cloud, there's on-prem. One's more agile, maybe less secure, but these are more, again, perceptions. There's hot, warm, there's cold, there's potentially sub-custodian. Again, all of these seem to be binary decisions, but it's a false dichotomy. These are not binary decisions. As you scale, as you have success, you potentially need all of these. You may want to start with an easy solution in the cloud, eventually move on-prem, fully under your control, all the stack. You may need air-gapped cold. You only started with hot. You may have a use case for MPC hardware. They're not one or the other. You potentially need them all. And that's where you need to get to if you want to be prepared for eventual success. And when I say success, I mean, you can see some of the clients that are in the market. DBS, these are public. You can Google DBS. They launched an institutional exchange in Singapore a year ago, and the Q4 growth was 2 times all of Q1 to Q3. They were growing 100% a month in the last quarter. There's no way to refactor your platform after you've launched. Once you have success, you cannot pull back, so you need to be ready for success. Zodia, same thing. I mean, we collaborated with Zodia, which is a joint venture between StanChart and Northern Trust. We built a lot of our kind of end-to-end governance, which I'll touch on later. But for them, it was critical not to have a platform that is here, something that does it all, but you're tied into that vendor that your roadmap is their roadmap. You need to have something that's open, scalable, delivers all those options. And I think the context, I have a bi-weekly podcast called Metaco Talks. If you haven't, please check it out. HSBC, Rajiv Tumla is one of our guests. He's the global lead for digital assets. And if you, even at HSBC, a very conservative firm, is looking at this space not as an experiment, but eventually all assets will sit on chain. So the stack they're building now is not, we want to plug in, 5% allocation of our clients' assets and deliver them both traditional and crypto. Potentially, every asset they have will migrate onto the stack, so this is their new core infrastructure. So if you're going to have trillions of dollars of assets on this, you need to have that optionality. It needs to be an open platform. Because remember, these guys are coming because the clients are coming. And when the big boys are moving, you need to be ready. You can't start and then stop. So what does that mean, that complication? I mean, what we see, and it was referenced yesterday in some of the presentations, you may want to start with a sub-custodian because you want to validate demand. We see less of that now. I think in 2019, 2020, early 2020, there's some question, is there demand for this product? Banks often want an externalized sub-custodian. They can start that way, but often you now see people go straight to self-custody. You may want to start with a hot. You get a bit more assets, you add cold. Use case is pretty simple. It's crypto on-ramps, off-ramps. Usually this is the best way to start because if you go to the board, you also need to demonstrate that you can monetize your solution. But it doesn't stop there. What we've seen is those examples is you do experience success. And soon after success comes more complication. You start adding different use cases, potentially NFTs. Obviously, they're taken off. Your clients are probably asking for those tokens, different types of tokens, different types of use cases for tokens, payment use cases. The stack gets more complicated. You start looking at geographical expansion. As we're saying, the space is becoming more and more regulated, more and more regulations. Unfortunately, it's not globally harmonized. You operate in Singapore, Hong Kong, Germany, Switzerland. It's all different regs, different rules. You have group-wide policies you need, but you need locally specific policies. You have different business lines that have different risk, different operational controls, different fiduciary responsibilities. How do you implement those in a crypto framework? And then, of course, the reality is, if you're a bank, all of this needs to be integrated in your core infrastructure. And you don't want to go there most of the time. Your legacy, a banking's legacy infrastructure is legacy on legacy on legacy. It's basically a spaghetti. So you don't want to build another spaghetti connecting to a spaghetti. It would be forever integrating that. So what do you want to get to? And I think the idea is your foundation is obviously custody. And custody, as we're saying, comes in many flavors. And even, we're talking about self-custody and sub-custody. Sub-custody may not be just a starting point. We work a lot with security services firms, and if you know that space, they have a direct custody model and a network custody model where they operate in different jurisdictions and they rely on a network of sub-custodians where they're not physically present themselves, they're not regulated as themselves in that jurisdiction. So the future could be a combination of both of these. And then, of course, you need connectivity to centralized venues, which are the current way to trade. You're going to need, obviously, connections to all the protocols, to decentralized protocols, to new token frameworks, to DAOs eventually, NFTs. We heard a lot about DeFi yesterday. I think every one of the consultants presented on DeFi. It's coming. It's not going away. It may be more regged. And then how do you manage all this? This needs to be, this again is going to be your new stack. This is where all your clients' assets will eventually sit. So you need a system to orchestrate and manage all this, manage all your workflows and governance at scale, automation with scalability and security and compliance at the root of everything. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about what we do at Metaco. So we focused, better or worse, we focused on the tier 1 problems. We focused on tier 1 banks to start. We didn't go fintech native, start with, have a simple use case. We said, let's talk to the global firms that are getting in the space and build a solution that meets their needs, that solves their problems, that thinks about what they view as eventual, that all assets sit on chain, and they need a solution that is scalable. And now we deliver that to the rest of the market. BBVA is a good example. They work with us and one of our partners, Avaloq, who's here, who I think you'll be hearing from later this morning. And a solution that started small, simple use case, started in Switzerland, deliver a simple solution, Bitcoin custody through the e-commerce, through the e-banking platform to their high net worth clients. Tested out. Soon after, within the same year, they've scaled that to all markets globally, to the mass affluent, to North America, ex-US, LATAM, Western Europe, Turkey, Japan. Success again. Are you ready to scale this success? Are you ready to scale when success comes? You're not able to stop this once you launch it. So what are the other problems? We always talked about orchestration, but when you dive into the weeds of it, what does that actually mean? Now, governance is critical. So keeping keys safe is relatively trivial. It's easy to put them put your private key on a piece of material and put it in a vault, but clearly you need to interact with it. So the governance of the process around how keys are used is critical to the entire stack. Everything's about governance. And if you look in the market, it seems that if you ask about policies, it's a box-ticking exercise. Everybody has policies. But the critical point of policies is it's not just about transactions. It's about your entire stack. You need to ensure there's no single point of failure. If you're going to have all your clients' assets, all your assets you manage for your clients, trillions of dollars, you need to ensure there's no single point of failure. There's no administrator that, despite your policies and transactions, as a root admin key can override those. So every process, start to finish, from setting up users, permissions, to managing whitelists, to managing any interaction, needs to be subject to a governance process that's distributed. There's no single point of failure. There's no person that can walk out the door or compromise that stack. And that's what we deliver, a unique offering in the market. And that includes those policies as well, 100% under the client control. They're not sitting on a common database your vendor maintains. They're yours. You define them, you implement them. Your own keys. MPC is great. It's very agile. We work with MPC. But to go fast in that MPC, often there's compromises. You may delegate one of the keys to a vendor, but you're a bank. All the keys should be yours. Everyone knows they're not your keys, not your coins. Can you be halfway pregnant? You should control all your keys. And infrastructure, the banks have many use cases. You may want to start small. You may want to start like an agile startup, meaning you've got an MVP. You probably want it all SaaS just because you want to test things out, get to market quickly. You may want to work with a particular hardware. You may want to work also with MPC. And then you eventually may want to migrate that all on-prem. We can do that. We can get you going into SaaS, migrate it into an on-prem, fully under your control. Integration, we've had an integration with Avaloq since 2018, and we continue to build partnerships there. We recently announced a partnership with IHS Markit. Similarly, we deliver to their security services solution an integrated solution for their clients. And importantly, IT sovereignty. So you own the stack. You can rely on our own roadmap. We obviously have a roadmap around currencies and features and new things coming out. But in the end, if you want to build your own currency integration, your own custodian integration, your own protocol integration, you can do it, and you can build on top of the solution. You're not tied to us. So I've talked about where we're going, where you need to go, where you need to think about where you're going, but equally, we need to make it easy to start. And I think I alluded to earlier, there's typically a perception in the market that the simplest way to start is I need an MPC solution because there's no cloud, there's no infra to manage, no hardware. And it sounds good because it can be all cloud-based, but if you're going to manage all the keys as an institution, that also means you're going to need multiple deployments of those key shards in different implementations, probably different cloud nodes. And you can't have a single administrator managing them all. They'll probably need 3 different administration teams if you want 3 nodes. So you need, the technology itself looks cheap, but to operate it isn't necessarily that cheap. You need teams, you need segregated teams. Otherwise, you have another single point of failure. Hardware. Hardware's secure, the banks know it. I'm not going to make a case one is better than the other, but the point is you need to manage hardware. Hardware, just getting in the data center takes time. I mean, in the end, they need security around the data center because the keys are centrally controlled on the hardware. So there's significant security. Then connecting firewalls, et cetera, takes time. So what's the solution? So the idea that we start out in tier ones, we deliver the complex solutions, and now we simplify it for those that want to get going. We've launched what we call now Harmonized Go. So Harmonized Go leverages a cloud HSM from one of our partners, from IBM, who deliver a solution fully managed with the key backend, the infrastructure, so the HSM, fully managed by them in the cloud. Client has full control of the keys. In the case of Germany, managed in a data center in Frankfurt. They deliver the highest security available in the market in terms of the ratings of the HSM and the secure enclaves, the FIPS 142 level 4 certified HSM, along with the EL5+ certified secure enclave. So you have the highest security available in the market. They will fully manage the firmware there. You do the key ceremony. You back up the keys on smart cards, which are they themselves FIPS 142 level 3 certified HSMs. We have a partnership with a logistics partner that can store those and distribute away for you. And from there on, you have no technology footprint from the HSM side, fully managed. The rest you can consume as a SaaS from us. Our harmonized solution is available as a SaaS. We provide you all the full indexing, orchestration, databases, your full wallet infrastructure is all there. So to get going, you have no technical footprint. You manage all your own keys. If you're working with another vendor already, no problem. IBM will do a free off-chain migration for you. And technically, we can get you live in a couple of days. Technically, the whole thing can be up in one day. You have to get the smart cards ordered, which is on average 3-day delivery. And this is all available as a simple package in a SaaS. Starts in this Harmonized Go. You can grow up to the growth level, enterprise, seamlessly grow in the SaaS, and if you need to, migrate on-prem anytime. Anytime you want to strategically go there, we can deliver that. The idea here is a highly flexible solution, minimal investment, no CapEx, small OpEx, and gets you to the market with a solution that will scale to any tier one eventual use case. Will deliver success to you. If you want to find out more, we have a stand just outside on the left. Myself and my team are here for today and tomorrow. We'd love to connect and explain. We can talk about pricing, talk about delivery, talk about your use case, and help you achieve that success. Thanks for joining.